It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-400-8009. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm your host, Brian Beatty, and here we are. It's a new year. Very soon I can say that I have been doing this show for a decade, providing you with my expert opinion of the housing market, providing you with national, regional, local news, of course, applying that to us that live here in the Low Country so that when it comes time for you to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, you're an informed consumer. You understand what's happening in the housing market. You understand the process of buying, selling, and investing in real estate. I like to peel back the curtain on our industry and really help you understand what happens from a real estate agent's perspective so that you, as the consumer, are more informed. So, very, very soon here, we're going to see some changes in our market, I think. There's been this incredible amount of inventory that's disappeared from our market. It happens every year. We're going to talk about that. We're going to do a recap of just what happened last year. So we're going to talk about what happens here over the next few months as people kind of warm up, the spring market approaches. A lot of folks obviously would like to buy now. There's just not a lot out there. We're going to talk about some solutions to that. Of course, if you're considering selling your home, I'm going to talk about that as well. I also want to talk a little bit about some mistakes that I think some buyers are making and some questions that they're not asking. I think they're rushing into the process. So I want to have you take a step back and really understand some questions and some things that I think you need to know before you buy a house. So we're going to talk about that and more right here on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show this morning. Now, some of you might have some questions. Perhaps you're considering buying, selling, or investing in real estate. My team and I would love the opportunity to help you with that. Last year, we had another fantastic year, sold over 100 homes, and we've been in the top 1% of agents in the market for going on 13 years now, since 2009. So if you'd like to reach out to me personally and talk with me about your real estate needs, my phone number personally is 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. So write that down, save it in your phone. If you ever have any questions or you just have a real estate need, maybe you need a good contractor, maybe you have just a general question that you'd like to ask of someone that has done this for a living and sold over 1,000 homes here in the Charleston market, I'm happy to help. Of course, if you'd like to learn more about my team, you can do that by going to listingsincharleston.com. You can search what's available for sale. You can find out how many buyers we have for your home should you want to sell it, get a free valuation, or check out the radio show tab and listen to, I think, at this point, hundreds of shows that we've done over the course of the past several years. So listingsincharleston.com is the website for that. So let me first start with just kind of a recap of what happened last year. In order to determine where we're going, let's first revisit where we've been. And so the big story, of course, was extremely low inventory. It's been that way for years. COVID-19 hit. Prior to that, we were seeing appreciation in our market. Prices were going up. Our market was doing well. Markets across the country were doing well. But then the pandemic hit, and it really accelerated things to the point where nationally prices were up about 20%. We were slightly under that in our Charleston market. We were about 17%. But with prices being up 20% and the market just being on fire, let's talk about some of the reasons why. So first of all, we had a foreclosure and eviction moratorium. Usually when people are kind of knocked back on their heels, when businesses were forced to close, when we were forced to stay at home, usually that results in some people experiencing financial hardship, and as a result, distress sales occur. Well, we didn't really have much of that at all. Very, very few homes were in distress that ended up trading hands. You can also thank the forbearance that we had on government-backed loans. People were able to go to their lender and say, hey, I need to take a break for 3 months or 6 months or 12 months in some instances. And they would say, okay, well, we'll press the pause button on you making mortgage payments, but, after 6 months, you got to pay us back all at once, and then your payments will resume. And there were plenty of people that had the ability to do that and just took some time off, basically. And then they got right back into the saddle. They stockpiled some cash, and everything was okay. Other people ended up having to refinance their property, and maybe they owned it for a few years. Let's say they owned it for 5 years, and for those that don't really understand this, but have probably know this in the back of your mind, the first few years of mortgage payments really are just attacking interest. You're not really buying down the principal balance of your mortgage, and so you finally kind of make some headway in buying down some interest so that you can start attacking the principal. But if you went into forbearance, you couldn't make those payments all at once. You then had to refinance. What they do is they'd say, well, let's just re-amortize your loan over a 30 or 40-year period, and let's lower your payments, and let's just basically start over. Well, to some, that sounded great, but to those that really understand how interest works, now you've got to restart that whole cycle of basically just paying interest on your loan. But in the grand scheme of things, we did not see very many distress sales. We also had fantastically low interest rates, and right now we still do. And here's what I think you need to understand about interest rates and just about buyer mentality. People usually buy as much as they can get pre-approved for. The overwhelming majority of people are going to just buy the maximum amount of home they can afford. So, yes, of course, we see people that say, hey, I know I can get approved for a $700,000 house, but we're going to stick in the $450,000, $500,000 range. When you have a market that's seller driven, when prices are skyrocketing, when 6 months ago you could have afforded a home that was 300 square feet larger with some bells and whistles, and now you're looking at a smaller home with less upgrades. The idea of not going close to the maximum amount you can afford in theory is nice, but then they start looking at what they can actually buy for that reduced amount, and they say, we can do this. We are going to do this. And so they end up increasing their purchasing power because they have the ability to. They're approved for that. And that's usually just the way things go. We find that a lot of buyers end up increasing their price range when they get frustrated over losing bidding wars, or frankly just aren't that excited about the properties they're viewing. So we have low interest rates. Now, we've already heard that we're expecting 3 separate increases as they taper off from quantitative easing. So we are expecting interest rates to go up. That's a very dangerous game to play in terms of when and by how much. I certainly don't know. We just know that theoretically they will be going up at some point in the near future. The other thing to consider here, especially as it relates to low inventory, is that new construction has been behind demand, and it's been behind for quite some time. We're dealing with high labor costs. We're dealing with high material costs. We're dealing with supply chain issues. I mean, I got new windows and doors put into my house last year, and it took us 7 months to get new windows and doors. And the contractor said we were lucky. Usually it's taking around 9 months. So we're having all of these issues that are increasing cost. And we've also got land costs that are going up. So where we need inventory the most is in the entry-level market. I mean, if you look in the Charleston market at that kind of $350,000 and below price range in most markets, especially in Dorchester and Berkeley County, and in Charleston County, frankly, that doesn't buy you very much. There's like a month, maybe less, supply of inventory. Those homes are flying off the shelf. Prices are going up dramatically. Well, the problem for builders is that they're not really playing in that arena because they can't make enough money to justify building entry-level housing. And we need that type of housing because not just for builders, but for people to sell so that they can then sell that property and go and buy something more expensive. Another challenge we're faced with is the fact that the number of vacant homes for sale is at an all-time low, which of course detracts from available inventory. A lot of people cannot take the risk of putting their home on the market and then trying to find something to buy. They want to do it the other way. They want to go and find something that they want to purchase, try and negotiate a deal with that seller with the caveat that, hey, we also need to sell our house, so you're going to have to give us some time to do that. And we've talked, at length about different ways of combating that, and we're going to talk about it just a little bit more, a little bit later on in the show. Some of the creative options that you have as a seller or as a buyer that don't necessarily mean you have to approach a seller and say, hey, I want to buy your house, but I have to sell mine first. And so if you accept my offer, then I'll put my home on the market and we'll try and sell it as quickly as we can. Well, for a seller in a market like this where properties are selling in days, it's not a very attractive proposition. So we need to be creative in thinking about some other solutions to that challenge. And we have those solutions. We'll talk about that in just a little while. The other thing to take into account here in terms of what happened last year and even slightly the year before that was that, we had this whole work from anywhere movement, which meant a great reshuffling of society into housing. A lot of people have already made that transition. People from, think about it, New York, Chicago, a lot of people from California, and basically everywhere in between. They're moving where they want to move. And guess what? Charleston is one of those areas. So, when we look at prices, house prices should be riding high, but they have risen so far, so fast that they are increasingly disconnected from household income, from apartment rent, and construction costs. If prices consistently rise more quickly than income, then obviously owning a home just becomes unaffordable for a lot of people. If prices get too far ahead of rent, then it makes more financial sense to rent than it does to buy, especially for first-time home buyers. And if prices outstrip the cost of constructing homes, then builders have a strong incentive to put up more homes. I think a big concern coming into this year is debt and just taking on too much of it. Because I think we all get, not all of us, but it's common for a lot of people to get used to whatever type of market you're in. What we experienced last year is not normal. A lot of agents are very spoiled in that they think that selling real estate is really easy. Obviously, they've never been an agent in a buyer's market where, instead of having 1,300 homes for sale like we do right now, we had almost 13,000. So a concern is just taking on too much debt, along with, of course, increased spending. Everything's more expensive now, right? So maxing out loans, pulling out equity, this whole kind of spend it if you got it mentality. Every time that I earn more income, I increase my lifestyle. That's how a lot of people got into trouble last time, especially once their adjustable rate mortgage spiked. A problem we don't really have right now, like we did during the pre-crash lending environment of 2008. In fact, we've got a lot of differences between then and now. But if you look at where we're headed, obviously one of two things is going to happen. The most kind of graceful scenario is for prices to cool off a little bit, which is what people are calling for. The rate by which prices go up will slow down. It will allow income and rents and construction costs to kind of catch up with everything, ultimately with the idea of balancing out some of the affordability of housing. Of course, the other side of the coin here is that house prices continue to quickly appreciate. We get more speculation from investors and from kind of everyday buyers and sellers that, hey, no matter what happens, my value is going to go up, and they bank on that. And then a bubble inflates and at some point will burst. That scenario does not end well. House prices would ultimately experience a pretty hard decline if this continues. What we're doing right now, or what we're experiencing right now, in no way, shape, or form is sustainable. And I think we all know that. So we've got a really close eye on it this year. I think that is sparking some people to say, you know what, I'm gonna sell and I'm gonna get out while the getting's good. Interest rates are low. Prices on what I'm selling is high. Yeah, I might pay more. Of course, I will pay more for something I'm going to buy, but I get to lock in a low interest rate. I get to cash out my equity. I get to take advantage of high consumer confidence in the real estate market, and I can settle in for the next several years. So I tell you what, when we come back, we're going to talk about what's going to happen with this inventory. Is it going to come back? When will it come back? Why is it so low? And we're going to talk about the impact of that on both buyers and sellers in this type of market. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you have some questions for me, if you want to learn more about the value of your home, you're thinking about selling, you're thinking about buying, or both, maybe you'd like to consider investing in real estate this year. We'd love the opportunity to help. We've done well over 1,000 transactions here locally, top 1% of agents for, 13 years now. So the number to call or text is 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065. Or you can always visit us online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And you can always send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. Stick around, folks, for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 9 and each Sunday morning at 10 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. 1250 WTMA, the Big Talker. Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks for joining us this morning as we continue our discussion about housing. We were just talking about really kind of just going back in time and looking at what happened last year and the dynamics that built out a market that appreciated basically 20% nationally, which is an incredible increase in value to property values. So we talked a little about really what does this year look like? Are we going to experience more of the same? Are things going to taper off a little bit? I think the majority of people are saying things are going to taper off a little bit, but there's, of course, the other scenario, which is that we don't get this inventory that we've all been expecting and hoping for, and we continue to see significant appreciation in real estate. Things become unaffordable, speculation kicks in, and we're kind of back to where we were almost 15 years ago when the market crashed for different reasons, and who knows what that's going to look like. Obviously, we've got a close eye on it, and the point in telling you all of this is for you to be aware and for you to understand the dynamics, right? For you to understand the trends in the market and in housing, and then relate that to your own specific scenario. If you're thinking of buying, selling, or investing, timing is important. We all want to try and time the market. Timing the market is incredibly challenging if you don't have a very good understanding of the dynamics, not just within the market, not just within our economy, but locally, hyper-locally. What's happening in your neighborhood? What's happening on your street? All of that impacts your ability to accomplish your real estate goals, and that's what this show is all about. So if you're thinking of buying or selling or investing in real estate, maybe you want to get into real estate as a profession. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of agents out there, a lot of agents in our market. We've got over 7,000 agents and about 1,300 homes for sale. Do the math. There's almost 5 agents for every property for sale. But that doesn't mean you can't be successful in this industry. Our team has done very well. We're very well trained. We understand how to help people and how to find opportunity, which is a big part of what we do. You know, I always tell folks that I'm in 2 businesses, essentially. I'm in the business of helping people buy and sell and invest in real estate. And I'm in the business of finding people to help buy, sell, and invest in real estate. Any good company understands that scenario, client representation and client acquisition. And so when we talk about things like inventory and the fact that we went from basically over 1,700 properties for sale in December to now just a little over 1,300 properties for sale in January, a lot of people are wondering, well, why? What happened? Why does this always occur? And there's a simple answer. When a real estate agent is hired by a seller to help them sell their house, could be for 3 months, could be for 6 months, could be for a year, or anything in between. Typically, and this is just kind of common practice, typically they will write that representation agreement to expire on December 31st. Hey, give me until the end of the year to sell your property. And so that's why we see hundreds of homes disappear from the market every year. January 1st is, the heyday for everybody to call everyone that tried selling their home last year that didn't sell. So New Year's Day, 7:30 a.m. after, a night of celebration, your phone starts ringing off the hook at 7:30 in the morning if you were selling your home and your agreement expired with your previous agent. Isn't that nice? So will these listings come back? A good portion of them, yes, they will. Now, a lot of people have been kind of coached by our industry over the years to list your property in the spring. Of course, in the spring comes more buyers, and that's true. But also in the spring comes more sellers, more competition. So yes, you get the benefit of more buyers, but you don't get the benefit of having more sellers on the market. In other words, you haven't created any net gain, so to speak. Now, of course, the most transactions in our market historically, seasonally, are done in April and May. Properties go under contract the most in April and May, and then they close the most in May and June. That's just how it works if you look at the bell curve and the seasonality of our market. What I want you to consider is the fact that in an already low inventory market, you now have a drastically low amount of inventory and a drastically high amount of demand. So if you're a seller, take advantage of that. Take advantage of the fact that there's hardly anything else on the market right now. Anything that hit the market, last year that was priced well, marketed well, in good condition has sold. Now, there are times where even homes that are, everything looks good on paper. It's priced right. It's marketed right. The condition is in good shape. But for some reason, it just takes a little longer for the property to sell. Not everything sells in a few days. There are homes that are perfectly positioned that sometimes take a month to sell because you're lining up a buyer and a home. It's just sometimes it takes time, and sometimes it's just tough to explain that to people. Everybody has this expectation based on all the stories they hear, based on everything that's posted on social media, which is it's all the good news, right? It's all the success stories. It's never the, oh yeah, we priced our home well and we sold it for full price, but it took 45 days. That's not something that an agent's going to want to beat their chest over and expose to the world, but that's reality. It happens. The average days on market in our market is still a month. So obviously, side note here, but don't be too concerned if you've been on the market for a week or two or three and your home hasn't sold. It's okay. Now, months, it might be a bit of a problem. We obviously need to look at the precursors to offers, which is online traffic and showings, and of course, feedback. It's a bit of a separate conversation, but for those that are considering selling their home and want to wait until spring because they want to time the market, I'm here to tell you that the time to get it on the market is right now. Every buyer we are talking to is starving. They are starving for inventory. Now, the sellers that need to sell are in the same boat. And that is the problem. That is the delay, the bottleneck in our market this time of year. So what's the solution? So how do we address that? How do we fix that? If I'm listening to this show, knowing what you know, for those that have listened for quite a while, again, we've been doing this show for almost a decade. You know that, and it's not just me. There are plenty of companies or teams that do this and do a good job of it. The vast majority do not. And let's just be honest. I told you I like to peel back the curtain on the industry. The majority of agents are very lazy. They are very reactive. They want you to go to them with a property you want to see. They are not going to expend a bunch of energy to go and find a property for you. And that's the reality. So if I'm listening to the show and I'm planning on selling my house, but I just can't really get excited about what's out there, what I would do if I were in your position is call me and just simply ask, hey, here's what I'm looking to move into. Are you talking to any sellers that have something like that they're going to be selling? Are they in the same position? Do they want to sell, but they can't find something to buy? It's this big row of dominoes The only way to start tipping them over is for either a property to hit the market that matches one of those person's needs, or for a real estate agent to just pick up the phone, start making some phone calls and say, hey, this is what this person is looking for. Let's look at our database. Who have we communicated with that is interested in selling something this person wants to buy, or vice versa? Now, the thing that we have focused as a team, real estate team, on over the past really several years, because we've been in a low inventory market for years. This time, last year we had, I think, about 3,000-ish properties for sale. Now we've got 1,300. I mean, drastically reduced. But from our perspective, when we have a conversation with somebody that wants to buy or wants to sell, that goes into a system that allows us to very easily and efficiently look at the opportunities that we have, so that when we talk to a buyer that's looking in a specific area, price range, bed, bath, square footage, our system can say, here are all the people that might be interested in selling their home over the next few months to that type of buyer. Which is why when we're on this show, I also have the ability to tell you as a seller, hey, if you're going to be selling your home, these are all the buyers we have for you. It works both ways. So I think that for those that are concerned about being bothered by real estate agents, and I get it. There are a lot of annoying agents out there. And they're just going to blow you up with emails and texts and calls and offers for coffee and so on and so forth, but they don't really have much to offer you. I think you as the consumer need to get better at asking straightforward questions. Quite frankly, if you want to protect your time, ask better questions. Interview your agents. What kind of value proposition are they actually providing you with? Or is it just kind of same old? When you see something you like, I'll open the door for you, and then I'll help you negotiate a deal. I think agents need to be better than that. We need to be out there finding opportunity proactively. Now, the reality is there's a cost to that. There are resources that have to be deployed in order for an agent to be able to offer that. Most agents don't have the ability to do that. We've been doing it for years. We'd be thrilled and honored to show you how we do what we do. I'm not going to tell you any more about how we do it because, of course, there are agents that listen to this program. But if there are agents listening and you're not currently doing what I'm alluding to, then that's the value proposition that this market needs. We need to be out there connecting the dots, shaking trees, finding people to move into specific homes. We've got access to the data. It's just a matter of whether or not the agent wants to do it or not, or if they want to take the easy route. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about most agents just being lazy in this market, in that we've got so much technology at our fingertips. An agent can spend 3 minutes on a search that they set up in the MLS, kind of use the set it and forget it approach. After they ask a buyer what they're looking for, they say, okay, great. Well, yeah, I'll input all of these parameters into the MLS, and every time something new hits the market, it'll send you an email. So just be sure to reach out to me as soon as you see something you like so that we can get out there and take a look at it so that we don't get beaten out with a multiple offer situation. I mean, it's the typical passing of the buck to you, the consumer. We're the ones that should have our ear to the ground, finding opportunity for you. That's what I think we've really excelled at, and that's where I think the industry needs to be right now. If you agree, if that's something you want to learn more about, if you want to have a conversation with me about what we're actually doing to connect the dots here, and go outside of just what's typically available to real estate agents, then give me a call, 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065. You can visit us online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or, of course, you can send me an email, Brian, that's Brian with an I, at Brian Beatty, Beatty, team.com. So Brian at brianbeattyteam.com. Stick around, folks, for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'd like to just take a moment and say thank you to those of you that listen to this program and rely on the information within it. It's crazy to think at times that I've been doing this for almost a decade. Started this in 2013, and frankly, I love it. I don't anticipate stopping in any way anytime soon. And so thank you to those of you that listen to the show, to calls that I receive, to the people that we help as a result of this program. If you'd like to reach out to me, if you have anything that you need real estate related, maybe it's just some advice, maybe it's, of course, helping with the process of buying, selling, investing in real estate. Maybe you're an agent, you want to get into the business and you want to align with somebody that's seen some good success and really understands the market and how to be successful in this industry. Maybe you just need a recommendation for somebody, some work that you're having done around the house. I got a guy. That's what I like to say. So in any way, shape, or form, if you're looking for some help, feel free to give me a call. My number is 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. And our website is listingsincharleston.com. So I want to focus for a second on some things that I think buyers tend to overlook. Obviously, the market is still hot. Anytime something hits the market, there's this expectation that, hey, boom, got to make an immediate offer. If you want to sleep on it, then the person that saw it yesterday that slept on it's making the offer today. So you got to make an offer today. It's just the whole rush to make a decision mentality. And while that is true, basically, I mean, the environment is what it is. It's very fast paced. But I think that buyers need to be aware of the questions that should be asked and the things that they need to research so that they're making informed decisions. I think we always need to be cognizant of resale value, not just getting sucked in by pretty photos. If there's a nice big empty space next to a house, you need to know if that's going to be more houses, if it's protected property, if it's zoned for an office building, if there's going to be a Target next to you. If you love your backyard and it's in a neighborhood and you need a fence for your dog, you need to know if the HOA is going to allow you to put up a fence. Maybe they do, but it's just a decorative fence that's no more than 4 feet tall and your dog's going to jump right over it. You might not care about the busy road right now, but look what's happening in Charleston. Busy roads become busier, and it can be tough to find a buyer when it comes time to sell your property. So I think there's just a lot of things that we need to be concerned about and thinking through before we make an offer on a property. And that is the role of the real estate agent, is to bring those things to your attention, right? So if you think about like that last example, will my new place be noisy? Then you can look into traffic patterns during different times of the day. Hopefully the real estate agent that you're working with is really familiar with the area. They understand what kind of traffic you're going to be up against at different points of the day because they've driven it, they've lived it for years. That's just something that I would look into if I'm hiring a real estate agent. I want somebody that really understands the area. Like as an example, if I'm just moving to the area and I'm moving to Johns Island and I'm not used to traffic, well, I got news for you. Traffic on Johns Island is not fun in the mornings and just during rush hour times. It just is what it is. Those are things that you would want to know. It goes past that. Maybe you're purchasing a condo. Well, are the people above you allowed to install hardwood floors? That would be pretty annoying to, have somebody that's always clacking their high heels or kids that are dropping toys above you if you are, a retiree and you want some peace and quiet. I mean, there's a bunch of different scenarios here, but you see what I'm getting at. Doing your due diligence. Another thing that I think people tend to overlook is, am I at risk for flooding, for fires? I mean, it's not just here locally, but, look what's happening on the West Coast. And so mortgage lenders are typically going to check, FEMA maps. And of course, you can call, insurance agents, and they can help you better understand what level of risk there is for that particular property as it relates to natural hazards and climate change or whatever. Climate Check, as an example, is a service that provides ratings for counties and cities and neighborhoods and zip codes, and it shows you kind of your risk for fire, heat, drought, storms, flooding, all that stuff in the future. You can just go in there and enter an address. Plus the property disclosure, which is a document sellers are required to fill out when they sell the property. There are specific questions on there, like has the property, has damage ever occurred as a result of fire, water, or smoke? Have there been any, flood insurance claims made? Has the property ever been damaged as a result of flooding? All these things are on the property condition disclosure statement, which your agent can provide you with. Of course, when it comes to things like flood insurance, we've got a lot of properties that were built before we as a county, whether it's Charleston, Berkeley, or Dorchester, joined the National Flood Insurance Program, which was basically sometime in the 70s. I can't remember the exact date, but if it was built before that, I mean, you could have built a home on a slab on the beach. Well, guess what? You are going to get rocked by flood insurance premiums. So you need to understand how much you're going to be paying in flood insurance. Another thing that we get asked often is, hey, is this a safe neighborhood, and does it have good schools? Well, I think one thing that is important to understand is that the U.S. Fair Housing Act of 1968 prohibits real estate agents from sharing that kind of information about crime and about schools, or about making statements about whether a school is good or bad, quote unquote, because in the past, that kind of information was used to steer, white buyers from black neighborhoods and vice versa. That stuff used to happen. And, let's be honest, there are still people that ask the question, is this a quote unquote good or safe neighborhood? And you can read between the lines. It's a very uncomfortable position for a real estate agent, which is why we say that is information that you need to research on your own. And here's a resource you can use. You can go to greatschools.org, or you can call your local police department. You can ask about crime in the area. But that's information that you need to research on your end. Agents can't provide that information for you. So I understand you wanting to utilize the agent for any and all questions you have. We can provide the resource. We're not always going to provide you with the answer. Another question that we get: will our view change? If you think about like newly built communities, a lot of them have maps outlining plans for retail sites and schools and amenities. They don't always come true, by the way. My mom bought a house in a neighborhood where they promised a neighborhood pool, and then they said, yeah, you know what? We decided against that, basically, is basically what that boiled down to. So you can't always trust that. But for, established neighborhoods or from a more regional perspective, you can ask your agent for insight on that. If they want to know what's going on behind the house, we have access to tax info. We can determine whether a home or a vacant piece of land, maybe some woods behind the house, or privately owned, or if it's federally protected land. And then, of course, you can use county sites, and you can check for planning updates and development updates to make sure that you're protected there and that you're at least in the know, so that there are no surprises. And, of course, any big development deal that concerns you, you have a right to attend. So I tell you what, let's do this. I'm going to take a quick break because we only got a few more minutes left in the show, and then we're going to come back to some of these concerns that I have among buyers kind of just rushing into a decision. I want to give you a few more things to think about, and they're good ones. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to us and just work with an agent that's going to cover all these bases, the number to call is 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. You know, if you're just joining us or if you've recently joined us, all of the information that we share on this show can also be found on our podcasts, which are on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. You can go to our website and listen to it, YouTube, and basically anywhere you search the Brian Beatty team or the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show, you'll find access to all this information. So don't worry if you're a few minutes behind. And of course, you can always just call me if you have specific questions. 843-800-0065 is our number. 843-800-0065. Or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. So I want to finish up this thought on some things that are of concern to me in the form of buyers rushing into decisions about buying a house without really fact-checking, without doing their due diligence. And so we've been talking about things like, traffic noise and flooding, safe neighborhoods, safe schools, views behind your house. Will that change? I think another thing that buyers sometimes don't even take into consideration, which is kind of the basics, which is why this is concerning, is things like utility costs and HOA costs or regime fees if you live in a condo or a townhouse. You have to have a really good understanding of what you're paying for on a monthly basis. And then, of course, in line with that is, what does your HOA fee include? What does your regime fee include? What are the rules and regulations that you need to live by? As a buyer, you should be reviewing association documents. If you're buying a condo, as an example, to see if there's a reserve fund that has enough money to pay for future improvements so that you can avoid special assessments, which could be tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars if major repairs are needed. There have been a ton of condos in Charleston County that over the past 10 years have had major special assessments, and everyone was hit up for, thousands and thousands, sometimes $10,000 plus dollars in special assessments. And the market wasn't nearly as good then as it is now. People didn't have the equity to deal with that. That resulted in a lot of sales, a lot of short sales, a lot of foreclosures. We need to look at things like the Architectural Review Board. If you want to put on a new roof or paint your house or install a fence or do basically anything to the exterior of your property, do you have to get approval on that? Are there certain materials you need to use? Another thing that I think is overlooked are the folks that are like, hey, I want to move to Charleston so I can be closer to the water. I'm going to get a boat. And then they forget to check whether or not they can park a boat in their driveway. A lot of HOAs do not let you park a boat in your driveway. A lot of HOAs have guest parking restrictions and visitor restrictions. Like there was, I'll never forget, there was a buyer that purchased a condo, and she was super excited about it. It was the first place she bought. She wanted to have a big pool party for her birthday, so she brought a bunch of friends over to go to the neighborhood pool, and they didn't let her in because she was only allowed like 2 guests or something like that. And it really put a sour taste in her mouth. And we worked with her on the sales side. We didn't help her buy it. That was one of the reasons. She just couldn't stand it. Another thing to look into is if you need to rent out your property, can you do it short-term or does it have to be long-term rentals only? So you need to check on these restrictions to determine whether or not you can use the property as you intend to use it. You need to be aware of these restrictions, and you just need to take the time to make informed decisions. So I understand the market's hot. You need to act quickly, but you need to be an informed purchaser so that you avoid buyer's remorse. Now, if that's something we can help you with or anything else we've talked about on this program, feel free to give me a call. We'll walk you through it. We'd love to earn your business. 843-800-0065. That's 800-0065 or listingsincharleston.com. Stay safe, enjoy your weekend, and thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009.